Okay, so we've all been there, right? It's late, you're getting ready for bed, and that little voice in your head starts whispering, should I grab a snack or just hit the hay?
Oh yeah, that late night snack dilemma. It's something pretty much everyone's pondered at some point, I think.
Definitely. And today we're going to do more than just guess or rely on bro science. We're going to dig into the actual science behind eating before bed.
Love it.
We found this super interesting video from Renaissance Periodization that goes deep on this topic. It's not just about what to eat, but really about the timing of your nutrition, especially that last meal, and how it can impact your sleep muscle recovery, and even how effectively you burn fat.
It's a really cool deep dive into nutrient timing.
Right. It really gets into the specifics.
Oh,
And that's our mission for today's show, to unpack all of that for you guys. We want to break down the science, explore these different strategies, and help you figure out what aligns best with your goals, and most importantly, what supports your sleep.
couldn't have said it better myself. And the cool thing about this video is that it goes beyond just giving you a list of foods to eat or avoid before bed.
Oh, definitely. It's not just another eat this, not that kind of thing.
Right. It actually digs into the research and presents different perspectives on what and when you might want to eat in that pre-sleep window. So by the end of this deep dive, you'll be equipped to make informed decisions based on your individual needs.
Exactly. There isn't one perfect answer for everyone. But by understanding the different approaches, we can at least start making choices that are more evidence-based.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to really grasp how this all fits together, let's start with the basics. Where does the video even begin with this whole eating before bed thing?
Well, it lays the groundwork by explaining the fundamental principles of nutrient timing.
Nutrient timing. Always a hot topic in the fitness world. What's the gist?
Basically, it's the idea that when you eat can be almost as important as what you eat,
Right.
especially when it comes to building muscle and losing fat.
So it's not just about hitting those daily macros for protein, carbs, and fat. The timing itself plays a role.
Exactly. And the video emphasizes the importance of meal frequency as well.
How often we eat.
Yep. They recommend aiming for at least 4 meals spread throughout the day for those who are serious about maximizing muscle growth and fat loss.
4 meals. Okay, so more frequent meals are better for muscle building and fat burning.
Well, the research they cite suggests that while 3 meals can definitely be effective, 4 meals seem to provide a more consistent supply of protein to your muscles throughout the day.
Got it. So 4 seems to be that sweet spot. And I'm guessing these meals shouldn't be all crammed together, right?
You got it. They need to be spaced out, ideally by about 3 to 6 hours.
Makes sense. And that spacing is especially important as we get closer to bedtime, right?
Exactly. One of those meals will likely fall within a few hours of when you hit the sack.
And just how few those hours are is where the different strategies come in, I'm guessing.
You got it. But before we dive into the specifics of pre-bed eating, the video touches on this concept called circadian nutrient cycling.
Circadian nutrient cycling. That sounds pretty complex. What's that all about?
It's a fascinating area.
Mhm.
Basically, it explores the idea that our bodies have an internal clock that influences a whole bunch of things, like when we feel tired, how our metabolism functions. And the theory goes that if we can strategically time when we eat different types of foods, we might be able to better align with this internal clock and potentially get better results.
So like eating more carbs in the morning when you need energy and maybe saving fats for later in the day?
That's the general idea. But here's where things get interesting. The presenter in the video emphasizes that as of summer 2024, the research on this isn't super clear-cut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are studies that point in different directions. Some suggest carbs might be better in the morning, others say the evening, and still others show no significant difference based on timing.
So it's not as simple as some people might make it sound. There isn't this one-size-fits-all perfect time to eat each macro.
Exactly. But don't worry, the main takeaway regarding circadian nutrient cycling is actually quite reassuring.
Okay, good, because this is starting to feel overwhelming.
I hear you. But the video presenter basically says that if you're meeting your daily protein and calorie needs and your meals are reasonably spaced and you're sleeping well on your current eating pattern, the precise details of nutrient timing probably won't make a huge difference.
Oh, that's a relief. It takes some of the pressure off of feeling like I have to time every single bite perfectly.
Totally. No need for overly strict or complex strategies, especially if they're messing with your sleep or your enjoyment of your diet.
Makes sense. And the video also cautions against going for super long stretches without eating right.
Right. Like that old don't eat after 6 p.m. rule. It's not always the best advice.
Especially if you go to bed much later than 6 p.m.
Exactly. Imagine having dinner at 6 and then not going to bed until midnight. You're looking at a huge fasting window there. And the video points out that these excessively long periods without food, especially overnight, can actually hinder muscle recovery.
Wow, so it's about finding that balance, not going overboard with the fasting.
Yeah. Sticking with those reasonably spaced meals even as bedtime approaches.
Okay, so far we've talked about total nutrition meal spacing and avoiding crazy long fasts. And this naturally brings us to the big kahuna, sleep. The video really hammers home how crucial sleep is for everything.
It does. The presenter even calls quality sleep a super drug.
A super drug.
Yep, and for good reason. It's not just about feeling rested. Good sleep impacts fat loss, muscle growth, and overall health and well-being. It's like the foundation for everything else.
I feel like we constantly underestimate the power of sleep.
All the time. Hearing it called a superdrug really puts it into perspective.
Definitely. So with that in mind, the big question becomes, how does what and when we eat before bed impact our sleep? Does it help or hurt?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And to help us figure that out, the video breaks down 3 primary eating strategies people commonly use before hitting the hay.
Okay, let's hear them. The first one is called minimal eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. What does that look like on the plate?
Think higher protein, low carb, and low fat. So things like lean meat or fish with some veggies or a serving of Greek yogurt. The focus is on keeping it light and protein-centric a couple of hours before you actually want to be asleep.
And what's the reasoning behind that approach?
Mainly to allow for easier digestion by bedtime. A smaller protein-based meal generally digests quicker than a larger, carb-heavy one. So you're less likely to experience things like excess body heat or energy spikes that can disrupt sleep.
That makes sense. Digestion does generate heat, and a sudden surge of energy right before bed probably isn't ideal.
Exactly. And the video highlights a specific benefit for this strategy, too.
What's that?
It can be particularly helpful for people who tend to get GI issues when they eat too much, too close to bedtime.
Ah, so if you're prone to bloating or discomfort after a late meal, giving yourself that 2 to 3 hour window with a lighter protein-focused dinner might be worth trying.
Exactly. Now, the second strategy is much simpler, eating normally 1 to 2 hours before bed.
Okay, so just your typical dinner, no specific restrictions on macros.
Yeah, just having a bit closer to bedtime. The main goal here is to ensure a good supply of protein is available in your system overnight to support muscle recovery.
Makes sense, keeping that protein synthesis going while you sleep. And the video points out that this actually works well for most people, right?
Yeah. The presenter emphasizes that the majority of folks have no issues eating a normal meal within an hour or 2 of going to bed and still sleeping great. It's like the people who have problems tend to be the most vocal online, so it might seem like a bigger issue than it really is.
Ah, the power of the internet to amplify things. So if you're eating normally before bed and sleeping fine, no need to stress about changing things up.
Exactly. Don't overcomplicate it if what you're doing is working. And it also allows for more flexibility in social situations like late dinners with friends or family.
Definitely. Practicality is always important.
Mm.
All right, what about the third strategy? This one sounds a bit counterintuitive, eating plenty right before bed within that 1 hour window.
Now, this one often involves a meal that's moderate to high in carbs, sometimes even 50 to 100 grams or more.
High carbs right before bed. That seems to go against a lot of common advice.
It does, but the rationale is interesting. The idea is that a larger carb-focused meal can actually help activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your body's rest and digest mode.
Rest and digest. So it's like telling your body to chill out and prepare for sleep.
Exactly. It can promote relaxation, aid digestion, and potentially even help you fall asleep faster.
Kind of like that classic food coma feeling after a huge pasta lunch.
Exactly. The video even uses that as an example.
Ah, I know that feeling all too well. So it's like harnessing that same effect to improve sleep?
Precisely. And this strategy can also be helpful for those on strict fat loss diets where hunger at night becomes a problem, or during periods of high stress when falling asleep is tough.
Makes sense. Filling up on carbs right before bed could help curb those cravings and maybe even ease some anxiety.
Yeah. But the video does offer a word of caution with this approach.
What's that?
While it can be effective, it's generally not the recommended first approach for most people.
So more of a last resort if other strategies fail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's always a chance of digestive discomfort or blood sugar fluctuations if it doesn't agree with you.
Right. Not everyone will respond well to a big carb load right before bed. All right, we've covered the 3 main strategies. Minimal, earlier normal, closer and plenty right before bed. And then there's a 4th, less common option that the video mentions, eating in the middle of the night.
Ah, yes, the midnight snack.
Yeah.
This one's definitely for more extreme situations.
Like what?
Primarily for those on very aggressive fat loss diets where intense hunger wakes them up during the night. or for people on huge bulking diets who struggle to get enough calories in during the day.
So not your average person's go-to strategy. Got it.
Yep. And if someone does find themselves needing to eat in the middle of the night, the video recommends keeping it mostly protein.
Like egg whites or protein shake.
Exactly. Something quick and easy to consume without needing a lot of light or prep work.
Minimize the sleep disruption as much as possible. And there were some practical considerations too, right?
Yeah, pre-planning is key. Having something ready to go in the fridge is essential. And of course, being mindful of food safety.
Right. We don't want anyone getting sick from a middle-of-the-night snack.
Exactly. And for those considering nighttime eating for bulking, the video has an interesting point.
What's that?
If you consistently find yourself needing to eat in the middle of the night to hit your calorie goals, it might mean your daytime surplus is too high.
So instead of adding a midnight snack, maybe adjust your daytime calories.
Exactly. The video suggests that the benefits of middle-of-the-night eating for bulking are probably pretty small anyway.
Makes sense. All right, we've covered these 4 strategies, but how does someone figure out which one is best for them?
That's where experimentation comes in. The video really stresses this. Pay attention to your body and see what works for you.
So try each strategy for a while and see how you feel.
Exactly. Give each one at least a week to account for normal sleep variations.
A week per strategy. Okay. And those sleep tracking apps and wearables could be helpful here, couldn't they?
Definitely. They can provide objective data on your sleep quality and duration while you're testing each strategy.
So go beyond just how you feel and get some actual numbers to back it up.
Exactly. And the video also points out that your ideal pre-bed strategy might not always be the same. It could change depending on your goals, stress levels, and other life circumstances.
So what works for you during a fat loss phase might be different from what works during a bulk, or when you're super stressed versus when you're more relaxed.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable and finding what consistently optimizes your sleep quality. And finally, the video ends with a really important piece of advice.
What's that?
Be skeptical of overly rigid and highly specific pre-bed eating rules.
Oh yeah, like those never eat this within X hours of bed kind of things.
Exactly. The presenter warns against getting caught up in those because the evidence behind them often isn't very strong.
So don't sacrifice good sleep just to follow some arbitrary rule.
Exactly. The goal is to find what helps you sleep the best, and that's going to vary from person to person.
Couldn't agree more. So for everyone listening today, the key takeaway is to think about those 4 options we've discussed: minimal eating a few hours before bed, normal meal, closer to sleep plenty right before bed, and the less common middle of the night option.
Yep.
Experiment, see how you sleep, and find what truly works for you.
It's all about personalized nutrition and sleep.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder what other seemingly universal health rules might actually be more nuanced than we realize.
Right. It's a great question to ponder. Given how unique our bodies are, maybe we shouldn't be so quick to accept blanket statements about what's healthy or unhealthy.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure. Always happy to chat about the science of sleep and nutrition.
Until next time, everyone, sleep well and eat smart.
You got it.